Hello and welcome back to the SC Blueprint podcast. This is our fourth episode for the 2026 season. Benjamin, how are you going?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm fantastic, actually. Dan, yourself?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. And look, for today's episode, we're going to be going through a little bit of a CTW analysis. We'll get onto more of what that means later, but then followed by potentially Dan's team list for this season, or what he has so far. But yeah, let's. I'm going to throw straight to you, Dan. Tell me what you've got to offer.
Yeah. So with the big changes in the scorings, obviously that have happened, it's been revealed, or it's pretty clear, that the new positions to attack are centres, because now centres get all the try assists, or a lot of the try assists from the tip-ons, and they still get the tries that they often just score from being in a pretty attacking position. So what I've done is I've gone back over the last season and I've found a website which looks at the tries scored by position. So, you know, like the Broncos left wing, that necessarily, it might not be Karapani because he didn't play left wing every single game, but that position and how many tries they've scored. Every team, every position.
Is this site a free to use one as well?
I think so. I think it's free
What
to
was
use.
the website called?
Honestly,
Just for the viewers.
no idea. Let me try. I think I just typed in NRL tries by position, and we're going to see what we come up with.
But yeah, I think this is going to be hugely have huge ramifications for SuperCoach, because it depends on who, what attacks look better, what wingers might prevail, what centers might prevail, based on the alleviated attacking stats. Who's going to have more value, obviously. Yeah.
Tryline.com.au. There you go.
There you go. Tryline.com.au. Big shout out to them, obviously. And if you're interested in seeing some more statistics yourself, we're going to touch on the key ones for us. But jump over to their website, obviously.
Yeah, so what I've done is I've added the tries from the same side of the field. So like the left wing and the left centre, I've added that, and we've got the tries for that left edge. Same for the right edge and same for every single team, because this obviously isn't fully true, but you would imagine that the centres are going to be involved in most of those tries. So there'll obviously be a cutout ball to the winger that the centre won't touch. That'll happen time to time. But for the most part, this should be a good trend of what centres are going to be the big dogs. So
Is it so just centers and wingers, no edge involved?
no edges,
That's
because we're
fine,
just
yep.
thinking about the impact of the centre.
The center itself.
And just touching on what you said, Dan, it might be also worth considering what teams have more dominant sweeping cutout fullbacks, like your Drinkwaters, your Teddies, your Reece Walshes. Yeah. And so obviously those will probably have more cut-up balls than it's passing through the centres. Maybe not. I guess we'll see. But yeah.
I'd also add to that there's definitely some halves that do similar things. So I know Braden Trindle is probably the best example, that he has a nice cutout ball that skips that centre. It's usually Iro on the left, obviously, and goes straight to Ronaldo on the wing. So there's going to be halves, there's going to be fullbacks that do the cutout balls. So definitely looking at what sides score a lot, because the sides that score a lot, they're not going to score from a cutout ball all the time anyway.
Definitely. Definitely all good factors to consider.
Yeah.
So do we'll make this a little bit of a game. Do you want to have a guess, both you gentlemen, what team and what edge was scored the most tries combined last season?
Surely right-hand Roosters.
Okay, good guess.
Okay. I'm going to go left-hand Dolphins.
The answer is left-sided Broncos.
That was going to be my
Are
second
the other
guess.
two the top three, potentially?
Both of your guesses outside the top three, but we'll get there.
Mm.
Broncos left edge, 21 tries for the left winger and 16 tries for the left centre. So this immediately starts to make me think, does Shibasaki enter your thinking? Obviously, this then goes back to the factor of Reece Walsh, cut out ball to to Karapani.
Yep.
That will be happening a lot this season. But yeah, that pinged on my radar. The next teams, Penrith left edge, 33 tries. So we're thinking Casey McLean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cowboys left edge, 32 tries, which now
Means Purdue. at
Purdue
5'8".
might have found a bit of a solution at 5'8" there. Rabbitohs left edge, 32 tries. Latrell.
Well, that's only going to skyrocket from here. I wouldn't be surprised if their left edge is the number one by the end of the season.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Makes a very easy case for Latrell. And then we go to the Roosters right edge, as Elliot said. 31 tries last year for that edge. Obviously, mostly coming from the wing and Mark. But Toya's still getting a lot of tip-ons from there.
Yep.
And the final one that I'm going to mention, which is 30 tries or more, is the Sharks left edge, which got 30 tries. So that's a pretty good indicator of a lot of the centers that you can start to look at and start to think about, the ones that are going to be involved in lots of tries. So that's Shibasaki, McLean, Purdue, Latrell Mitchell, Kale Ero, and Robert Toyer. So some interesting names there. Any thoughts on any of those names, guys, especially?
I would also like to add that obviously this doesn't limit us to those centers because, like your Stephen Crichtons, for example, although they didn't score 30 on their right edge, he does goal kick. So that's already a huge plus. Purdue, honestly, if he wasn't in that top list, even if he was like 28, 27 tries on that left edge, I'd probably still pick him up because there's not options at 5'8". So there's definitely some filling to do. But I do think there's some great options there. I mean, I've had Casey McLean for a fair while. Purdue, obviously, at 5'8". I've had Robert Toyer for a long time. Obviously, we talked in the last podcast about the speculation around whether he'll be back for round one or not. If he is, I think he's a great buy. I think there's definitely some great options there. Obviously, the Trubich will be the obvious one. I think you'd almost be stupid to not take a large majority of them.
Yeah, cool. I have similar thoughts. I think it's quite interesting that the Cowboys are up there. Obviously, with that Purdue option, we've already talked at length about that. But yeah.
Couple more interesting edges to list off. Some options that may not be as appealing based on this. So the Knights left edge, which normally we think of as a pretty decent edge. Obviously, they've not been great, but it's still a pretty aggressive edge. 16 tries last season between, I assume that's mostly Marju and Bradman Best. So I was definitely a person who was kind of a little bit of a sideways glance at Bradman Best because he's always good for base and power. Doesn't look like the best option at the moment, in my opinion. Another one, we were just mentioning Critter. Dog's right edge only got 17 tries combined last season, so it's one of the lowest scoring edges. Obviously, other factors of him goal kicking, him being more of a base power guy as well. But I was definitely interested to see that he was very low down in this kind of ranking that we've done here. Still think he's definitely a good option, though. Shows that this is not the be-all and end-all. It's just a little bit of a tool. Some other interesting edges. The Dolphins, as Ben mentioned, usually are very known for being a very prominent edge. 27 tries. So still good, but more around that like middling tier. So not as incredible as maybe we would have thought. But a lot of those tries are also from the center, with Herbie getting 13 tries last year. Or I imagine that's mostly Herbie. So, yeah, some very good options that can be revealed here. Some of the worst edges as well, like a really bad one. Rabbitoh's right edge last year, 8 tries in the entire year combined from the winger and the center.
That's why when people bring up Campbell Graham as a genuine mid-range, low-range sort of CTW option, I'm hugely against that. Like, I just don't remember that right winger be doing much at all, especially when I personally thought when Ty Munro came in mid to late last season, I was going to buy him. But then obviously for some reason I couldn't afford him. Or like plans changed, but he ended up stinking. Like, I don't think they scored much down there at all. So, yeah.
Yeah. Campbell Graham's a hard avoid for me. They're just so left side dominant, and I don't see any reason that's going to change given the additions to the left edge with Fafita. So I think we're just going to move on now we're going to pick a few of the bigger names or some of the less known names and just give a little bit of analysis on them each to give our opinions. Let's start with someone a little bit more interesting, Kale Iro. What are your thoughts on Kale Iro, Ben?
Yeah, I think obviously he averaged a try a game for what felt like forever at the start of last season, and not having none of us had him from the start of the season. That obviously stung a bit. Look, I think he's a great option. There's obviously going to be some chopping and changing at the wing as Ronaldo gets back fit. Sam Stonestreet is going to start there. It'll really be dependent on how the Sharks go at the start of the season for me. They've obviously got the Titans round one, which is pretty soft draw, especially for their left wing. The Titans have always just struggled defensively. But I would say that for me, it's going to be kind of reliant on how the Nico Hines Trindle halves partnership is working. Looked really good in the All-Star game, but we'll wait and see. I think he's definitely someone, if you have the money, get him in there. But I also do think that if you don't, then you could quite happily watch him for a bit and then eventually bring him in.
Yeah, honestly, if I was going to bring up any thoughts, there would be an echo. But I'm hugely keen on Kale Iro. 700k, though, I think for me, he's just an easy downgrade to Stephen Crichton. Save 100k, spend it elsewhere. But it's whatever you're keen on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors in terms of Kennedy being not a known, prominent, dominant ball player
Yeah, big time.
covered, like, balances out by the fact that Trindle and Hines obviously do a lot of that ball playing. And as Ben said before, Trindle loves a bit of a cutout pass. I definitely think he's worth consideration, though. Scored a hell of a lot of tries last year, and that is the edge they love going to. Don't think it's going to take a lot of imagination for him to have another good season.
I guess my fear with players around this particularly comes from that fullback role. So obviously Will Kennedy's not a prolific creator as such. He's not a Drinkwater where he creates something out of nothing. And I think the centres that have that fullback are going to be the ones that gain the most. Because, for example, Kennedy is, if he's not already getting the try assist, there's no try assist to go from him to KL Ero. Whereas like a Drinkwater is obviously going to lose so many try assists and they're all going to go to the centre.
I kind of think, I guess that's one way to think about it. I'm kind of thinking the other way in terms of if you have a more dominant creative fullback like Reese or Drinkwater or Tedesco, they're more likely to do a different play instead of just like going through the hands on the edge, which will favour the centre. It's more likely to be maybe a grubber underneath the line, maybe a short ball on the inside, maybe a cutout ball on the outside. So I think these teams where they do have a less creative fullback will probably favour the centres, is probably my view on it. I do understand where you're coming from, though.
Guess what like, in previous years, the fullback hasn't always got the points. So there was many times last season when KL Ero got try assists for doing just enough at centre, in my eyes, where he stepped outside the man or whatever. And when you don't have that electric fullback that creates the overlap, that's all of a sudden, if they do start going through their hands, going to be the centre's try assist every time.
I think it's actually a very fair point and an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, okay. Another centre to talk about. We've talked a lot about Crichton. Do we want to say anything more about Crichton?
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I think we've covered him. Let's go Purdue, because we floated it before. A very, very good option now to fill in at 5'8". 5'8" has been looking pretty grim. It's been looking grim for the entire preseason. Having a Purdue playing left centre who looks like he'll be gaining a lot more try assists, doing a lot more hard running at the line. He scored a lot of tries last year. I think he can carry on in the same way this year.
He's also one of the only duels. Like, when it comes to the halves, there is barely any duels at all. And I think having that option where if someone explodes at 5'8", and all of a sudden you want to bring him in, then it's pretty easy to just drop Purdue back for a cheapie that you've had for a while, back to centre wing, and then all of a sudden you've got that explosive 5'8". I think that's to his credit. I also think he's a great option at left centre. That Cowboys edge is obviously really dominant. The one thing kind of, I guess, to discredit him is that if they do start chopping and changing his halves, you definitely don't want him if he's playing 6. You need him playing centre.
Yeah, definitely agree. To echo your sentiments there, definitely going to be a worry if he starts moving into the halves. I know Toddy Payton wants him there so bad for some reason. He wants to give away his job. He hates his job. But honestly, being a Cody Walker owner all of preseason, I've seriously been looking at Purdue lately. If I have the cash, it is a solid option. I'd be really interested to see his ownership over the next sort of bit and see how that kind of balances out with Cody Walker. Whether people switch to Purdue if he gets named in Vegas or not. But yeah, that's it.
Cool. All right, I'm going to throw a couple more rogue options at you now, guys. Some of the guys who are lower owned, maybe not quite the same stature as these guys, but I think are worthy of consideration. First name, Stafford Toa. Now, Stafford Toa is, I think, actually at a really good price point. There's not many good-looking centre wings under that 500k mark. I think Stafford Toa could be one of them. The Tigers' right edge scored 25 tries last year, one of the better right edges in the entire comp. I also saw in the stats I saw from SC Playbook about the price changes that he was one of the biggest gainers. I think he might be like almost 90k underpriced, which is significant if you can find some of his form from last year. Lots of tries as well. So from that split of 25 tries, 10 tries to the center, 15 tries to the winger. It's a pretty significant marker for the center. And also Jareem Buller, not a known creative demon. He's definitely developing that into his game, but he's not a Reece Walsh. He's not a Drinkwater yet. So I think there's a lot of things going in Stafford Toa's favour.
In terms of Stafford Toa, I just wonder in those sort of like a team like the Tigers, a team like the Bulldogs, where their attack is kind of developing, like Benji is developing as a coach. They're a hugely developing side coming from kind of the bottom of the ladder to a mid-table, whether their attack just changes a little bit. I know with Dewey in the side at the end of last year, I'd love to see how Stafford Tower's stats got changed. Were they affected? Were they less? Anyway, that's one to look up and maybe come on the socials. But especially, I know with Jerome Luai partnering Dewey there, I'm fairly sure his average goes up quite a bit. And I just wonder if with the inclusion of Taylor May, whether it kind of just their attack changes a little bit to a bit more left dominant.
Yeah, definitely possible.
That's only my thoughts. I obviously won't be starting with him, but he's definitely a solid option, hugely undervalued. So, yeah.
I think for me, he had a really good start to the year. And then after the Panthers, Canberra in round 16, he went incredibly cold. So there was only one game out of the 9 games he played in the back end of the season, he went over 50. So I think he's one of those players a bit hot and cold. So
He's a low floor, high ceiling player. I'm not going to pretend he's a Val Holmes who's going to get you a floor of 50 to 60. But I think he's the kind of player, we all know this as well with Stafford Tower. He loves versing the Cowboys in that one game every year where he decides to be Latrell Mitchell or whatever.
Yes.
I think he's got a high ceiling. I'm not telling everyone to go start with him, but I think he's someone to think about.
Oh, definitely someone to think about, yeah.
My fear with him, I guess, is it doesn't seem like his success is matchup based. So really high scores against New Zealand Warriors, who obviously last season were good at the start of the year, Broncos, Cowboys, which is obviously we've talked about is a pretty regular thing, but then Canberra Raiders and a decent score against the Sydney Roosters. So it almost seems like he does better at versus the better teams. For example, the Gold Coast Titans, round 27, 23. Playing on the right edge. And in the other game against the Gold Coast Titans, so obviously last year conceded a lot of points, 38, I apologise. So I kind of think he's one of those players you just don't really know when to play him. So I'm probably going to steer clear of him. Because
He's not a base power guy for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No, you're just going to reserve him against someone who you think he's going to score 100 against, and he's not. And then you're going to reserve him against a team you think he'll get nothing against, and he'll get 100, and then you'll be absolutely gutted.
I think if you're going for Stafford Tower, you're accepting that and you're just playing every week. I wouldn't be trying to pick the week. I think you just got to roll with the punches in a way. Cool. Let me throw another name at you guys. Tolu Kola. Now, another guy who is a big attacking weapon on the Manly left edge, scored 17 tries last year, which is very, very impressive. Yes, Turbo is one of those fullbacks who I think could take a lot away from him, being a very creative presence who's likely to either throw some cutout balls or inside balls, things like that. But Manly's left edge is probably their strongest edge quite comfortably, I think. I think their right edge has fallen out of favour a little bit. Jason Saab's been catching a cold on the right. Halves a little bit uncertainty, but Fogarty's all he's got to do, Fogarty, is somehow get the ball to probably Turbo, who's probably the main ball player, and see how it goes from there. So I think Cola's, whilst, I don't think he's in the same tier as a Latrell or a Crichton, I think he's worth a look.
I think he's gone relatively under the radar in this sort of analysis of the new scoring system. When we look back to last year, averaging 65.8 in the old scoring system, obviously probably going to get a boost in try assists, especially Turbo being that kind of pass through the hands, sort of making the overlap, but then maybe not getting the last pass, not the huge cutout guy. I think he might have a massive boost there. But obviously I've just looked up his price being like $643K.
Not cheap.
20 more K, or a little bit less than 20 more K than Latrell Mitchell, but definitely not cheap, but definitely not a write-off in my opinion.
I guess for me, he had obviously a huge breakout season last year. The fear for me is whether he'll continue the form, and I think he definitely can, but we'll kind of wait and see. I also think Fogarty kind of changes the team dynamic a bit. Cherry Evans obviously looked to go down the short side a lot, but that's not something I've seen Fogarty do all that much. So for me, it's probably a sit and wait, at least for 3 weeks, probably for the first bit of the season, see how it all changes. I think having Fogarty there will actually give that left edge more ball, But I do also wonder whether it's going to be ball early in the sets and then they swing it back to the right more, which is something they really weren't doing last season.
Yeah, I guess Manly just being quite the volatile team. I kind of have them projected to be quite low on the ladder this year. I don't know how they're going to figure that one out. They couldn't really figure that out with their veteran of Cherry Evans. I don't know how the addition to with Jamal Fogarty will kind of allow them to finally break into the 8. I think they'll kind of just sink a bit.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. Any other big names at centre wing that you guys want to touch on? Anybody at all? Anyone in your heads?
Yeah, I guess Robert Toyer. If we can briefly touch on him. I just think he's a great option. Obviously, Mark led the league last year in tries scored, which probably contributed a large part of that right edge being so dominant. But I would not be surprised if that right edge continues to explode. I think Toya is actually going to get better and better. Obviously, he was quite new first year in Origin last year. He's only going to get better as a player, and I think having a full preseason where they're training together, I think it'll do wonders for him. Cherry Evans there, who obviously likes to go down the short side, and particularly we know how good Ruben Garrick has been with Cherry Evans there. I probably have Cherry Evans playing on the right side and Sam Walker playing on the left. They seem to favour the ball running halves on the left. So for me, that's kind of how it would work out. I believe that he becomes an even better option if Cherry Evans is going to be there. And obviously, it's going to be a destructive edge as usual.
Cool. I don't have huge keenness for Robert Toyer. I'm currently unaware of his price. Is it like $570? $570. Okay, so yeah, a bit higher. Yeah, I'm not that keen on him. I think that edge could be anything with Cherry Evans, Sam Walker, Teddy. We're still in doubts about Teddy. We had a little chat about in our last podcast. I'm not that keen on starting with him and just seeing how it goes. I'd rather just watch, and if he does actually become good or looking good, in maybe he's a trade in week 3 or whatever. But also with that injury, I think we talked about, yeah, bit of a worry for me. But yeah, good to talk about.
Very fair. Just something else I just went hunting. Because in all these stats, it looks like left edges are basically always favoured compared to right edges. So there's only 2 teams who scored more tries on their right side than their left side from these centre and wings that I'm looking at. And total, so adding every single team try scored by left wing, left centre, and then right edge, right wing, right centre. The left was 454 tries combined for the season, and the right was 339. Big disparity. So if you're ever tossing up, I would say left edges are probably more favoured. I think that's what teams are more going towards in this modern NRL.
Can you actually look for me if you have it handy? How many tries Garrick scored last season?
I can find it very quickly
because
if you want to keep talking.
Think that Toya is going to be one of those players where he's gonna score tries with Cherry Evans there. Obviously Tedesco sweeps both sides. He actually really prefers that right side. I think there's easy hands options there. Their second rower will probably be one of the Butcher brothers or Siwa Wong. I don't think that's demanding the ball as much as someone like Angus Crichton. So I think there's a great opportunity for him to score there. I know there's obviously speculation with the injury, but I don't want to have to trade everyone in round 3 or 4. That's my greatest fear, is that I'm going to want to trade too many people in. I'm tossing up the Drinkwater-Walsh combo, whether I swap on the easy draws. And if I do that, then that's probably 2 trades. If I use a boost, that's maybe a 3rd trade at best. Can't afford to trade everyone in before they price rise.
Yeah. So just on Garrick first. Garrick scored 12 tries last year. They mustn't have all been at right centre, because I've got here the Manly right centre only scoring 11 tries. But when I say only, that is the most tries scored by a right centre or by the position right centre in any team in the NRL.
It's also only 2 tries off Herbie, and we know how destructive Herbie was last year.
Yeah.
So for me, Cherry Evans loves the short side. I think he'll carry that into the Roosters. I think that really adds another depth to their game. They'll run the ball left with Sam Walker, in my mind, because they had Sandon Smith there at the start of the year who was doing all the ball running. And then they had, when Hugo Savala came into the team, Sam Walker swapped to the left side as well to do the ball running. So I'd say Cherry Evans will just take on the short side. They'll kick to that wing, obviously, with Mark. I don't know. For me, he's a great pot option.
Yeah. And just finishing up on the centre wings, I think the only last thing to touch on is the cheapies. So I think as we see it, there's only 4 cheapies in centre wings, and I think we're all pretty keen on all of them. Setu 2, Tom Chester, Makasini, and Faimani. I'm going to throw this on the spot to you guys. If you could give me like a power rankings for them 4, where did you think you'd rank them?
Do you mean in most viable in your team?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
So like if you only have like one or two spots, what's your priority?
I think in taking into consideration like where they are, like how solid their position is in the team, and then obviously based on what we think they could projectedly get in the year. I think for me, Setu 2 is number 1. I think Faimani is number 2. I think their job security just puts that 1 and 2 for me. Then I'd probably go 3 Chester, obviously seeing what happens in round 3, and then 4 Makasini.
I'd probably flip both of the first 2 and the second 2. So I'd probably go, I think it's actually Faimani 1. I think solid spot. I think he can hold it down easily. I think he has great base and power. All it's going to take is a couple of tries and he'll explode. I think Setu 2 is obviously the next closest. However, I do fear if he makes a couple of errors and they start going bad, like it's pretty easy sub in. They'll just put David Farley in there. There's more competition in my eyes for that than Jalen DeGroot with Faimani at the Titans. I would then go Makasini just because I think if there's a chance of someone playing 3 rounds of football, for me, it's Makasini rather than Chester. I think when Laybuck comes back, unless they change their halves pairing, which just feels stupid, then Chester's just going to drop out, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I would agree with part of yours. So I think I'd go Setu 2, Faimani, Makasini, and Chester, just because I think Chester's long-term role is probably looking fragile, unfortunately. I definitely don't. I think, though, all of them are good and worthy starts. If you think that Makasini's going to have a ripping year, which he definitely could, I think there's no issue starting with him.
Yeah. I think he definitely will. It's just a question of whether he does get that spot, and just that's the only reason why I've put him at number 4.
I do think for me, I'm kind of in favour of only having 3 because then it becomes an easy pivot if someone drops out of the team or anything like that. Whereas if you start with 4 cheapies, you kind of have no one to go to. Like the next cheapest playable player, I'd be hard pressed to even find who it is. It would honestly probably be like...
Well, not a playable one.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think your lowest next playable might be looking at a Campbell Graham at like 460k or something like that.
Just
there's probably some guys in between.
There's obviously Jalen DeGroot if he does get that spot, but
not relevant guys.
But I also think like trying to find 200k, you're gonna have to do some serious changes in round 1, 2, or 3 to get that much money to upgrade. So I think having the ability to pivot to another cheapie is good. Otherwise, you just let them be a faceless man until there's another cheapie that pops up with an injury or something.
Love a faceless man on my team.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely, boys. I think that's the end of our CTW preview. Hopefully that was helpful to all our listeners who are unsure what to do at centre wing. Now we're going to move into my team reveal. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this team at the moment. There'll probably be some changes based on, obviously, the team reveals. Like, that's pretty obvious. But I'm liking where I'm at the moment. So I'm just going to run through it. If you boys want to give any small comments when applicable, we can do that. Hooker, we've gone pretty down the middle. Harry Grant and Brandon Smith. I think that's going to be the most common 1-2 punch this season. Yeah. I've been toying around a lot with Jake Simpkin because I do like his role. I think that Docker Clay doesn't look like he's in a lot of favour just based on some of these team lists I've been seeing. And the fact that they played Simpkin for 80 lots of the time last year gives me confidence that Seabell might do it again. But at the end of the day, I was like, I can either have Brandon Smith and an extra 200k, or I can have Simpkin. That 200k, I think, is going to go to better use elsewhere. I did toy with the idea of having Jake Simpkin, Grant, and Brandon Smith and putting Grant on my flex.
Yeah,
I did do that last night, but I figured there was better place to spend the money. Any comments on those two? Probably not.
Not at all, really.
Pretty down the middle.
Nah.
Yeah. Cool. Moving to the front row. Payne Haas, another one, pretty down the middle. Just captain him. The plan is to captain him for every week for the first 6 to 8 to 9 to 10 weeks, and just let those safe points roll in. Stefano Utikamano. So myself and Elliot both have Stefano. I know on this podcast we love Stefano. We think he's in for a huge year. The Storm forward pack is honestly at its weakest in a few years. And I think Stefano's going to have to step up with a big role. I think he's big for power. I think he's big for base. And I think he'll play big minutes.
Yep.
Yep. No
No objections
I'm
at
sure
all.
we all have him in our teams. So.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the bench, also pretty standard. Jesse Colquhoun in for big minutes at the start of the year until
Yep.
McInnes comes back at
Which
lock.
has been said to be like round six or something like
That's
that.
what I've heard as well. So
Honestly.
we'll get 2 or 3 price rises out of Colquhoun. That's not terrible. And then Taniela Paseka, I think another one who will be starting in the Manly front row. And as he eases, I think it might be a little bit of a slow burn with Paseka. But I think once he eases into his minutes, he'll be making good money for you as well. Lovely. Second row, starting off still pretty standard. Isaiah Yeo. I think he is one of the best players to benefit from this new scoring system. I think his base is very impressive and has been for years, and now he's going to be rewarded even more so with it with some more tackles. Also, I think I heard on a podcast that last year was Isaiah Yeo's lowest scoring year in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So, and obviously this price is based on that. So if he's in for a bigger year than previously, I think he's almost a must.
Yeah. I think there's 80-minute role there up for grabs as now. Like he was already playing 80 most weeks, but with Popoli going to move to a bench, like an edge spot, sorry, I think he's just going to play 80 every week.
Yep. I wholeheartedly agree.
Beautiful. Toby Couchman. Now, this has been a real workaround with me the entire time with this team. I've done a lot of Haas to flex, Couchman to front row, someone else at second row. I'm honestly pretty happy to have Couchman in the second row. I've said it all the time. I think he's in for a massive year. I think that Dragons forward pack is uninspiring as anything. I think that he will play big minutes. I wasn't overly impressed with how much he played in his trial. Like, I would have liked to have seen him play a little bit of a bigger role, but it was still good. I think he played in the realm of 50-ish minutes and got 50-ish SuperCoach points. So if he's going to go at that point per minute pace, I think he's going to make good cash.
My fear with them is just they looked like they were playing Ryan Couchman through the middle, which is my fear. If they start putting 3 middles on the bench, he's probably not going to play any more than 50 minutes. And in that case, he's actually overpriced. I think there were some opportunities last year where he played on the edge, where he scored a bit. He had to play 80 minutes. Obviously, he played through the middle with some big minutes as well, with some injuries. Probably need one injury for him to absolutely explode. I'm on the fence. I don't think he's a strong avoid. I also don't know if there's somewhere I'm going to try and save money. It's going to be there.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's in the same sort of echelon as Stefano. And for me, Stefano's just a bit better. I can't really fit him in at 588k. I'm going to look to potentially like a Jermaine McEwen, sorry, and then a Helium Lukey at like 400k. Or even just kind of wait and watch and see how Jermaine Hobgood goes.
Or just get the best player in the game, David Fafita.
Yeah.
That option.
Well, just to finish on Couchman, I do think Ryan Couchman getting those big minutes in the middle in that trial game is a bit of a red herring. I think if that's not a trial game, that probably doesn't happen to the same degree. So I'll be amazed if he plays less than 60 minutes on a regular basis. I just think Josh Kerr, not going to be a big minute guy. Emre Gula may be a big minute guy, but I think Couchman has the potential to be the big minute guy in that pack. All right. Yes, as we move on, there is no Fafita in this team. As we know, I'm a little bit skeptical on Fafita. I think he could have a big year. But it is, I still think, a risk. I think it's been a while since he's been back to his best. Let the record show if he pops off and someone else flops, I will absolutely be flocking to him. I have no shame at all. But for the start, I'm happy to go without. I've got Trey Mooney in at my second row 3.
Yeah.
Another non-controversial pick. I think basically everyone has him. I've slotted him in at second row. Allows for lots of good rotations with front row, with probably Jesse Colquhoun. Jermaine McEwen, second row forward, number 4. I've done lots of variations with this team. I've always wanted McEwen to be my 4th second rower, my first guy on the bench, because I want that flexibility for him to not play every week, especially if he has a little bit of a slow start, still working into his new big role. But I think he'll have an 80-minute role on that bench. I think he's very good for base power, and he always looks good for a try.
Yep.
No arguments for me, really. To be honest, I think I currently have him at my 4th second row forward as well, actually. It's just a toss-up, cost of the coin between him and Lukey, I think, for me. I think they're both great options. We'll just see who gets more ball.
Yeah. I agree. Obviously, probably the only downer is he's in a Knights side that scored 0 points on the weekend.
Yeah.
But no, I think he looked pretty good on the weekend. He charged over, obviously got held up by Sean O'Sullivan, which we talked about in our other podcast. But no, I think he passes the eye test for me. Looks pretty good. Obviously, I think I might probably pivot to a Helium Lukey, but we'll see.
Yeah, Helium Lukey's also in my thoughts somewhere. Yeah. And then the next two second rowers, don't need to spend any time on them. Patson and Lasardi, pretty obvious, pretty down the middle. I think pretty much everyone's going to have them.
Yep.
Halfback. This is where we get a little bit more interesting again. I've gone with the double cheapie, Ethan Sanders and Daniel Atkinson. Now, I do still like some of those bigger guys. I like Cleary. I like Campbell. I think Hines has a place somewhere, maybe not at the start. But with seeing the massive crashes in what the price of the halfback should be based on the scoring change, I'm kind of happy to just avoid them all from the start and just see how everything shakes out. In probably 5 to 6 rounds, everyone's price will be back to normal. Maybe Sanders and or Atkinson have made some bicky, and I'm keen to upgrade. But for now, I'm kind of happy just to take a little bit of a back seat. They will not be the best scorers, obviously, but Sanders' goal kicking is probably enough to make me happy enough to start him most weeks, and then bring in Atkinson maybe if he's got a good matchup.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've probably up towards the double cheapie. I tossed up the JC, Jane Campbell. I just thought it was a great option, but like if I have Kinney already, I have someone in the Titans attack. They're going to score points, but I think it's a great position this year to save money. You've got two genuinely good cheapie options. As Dan said, Sanders is going to goal kick. That's probably a free 20 points every week. He's going to kick probably 4 to 5 goals. The Raiders, as we know, love scoring points. Yeah, I think it's just a great option to put there. You just set and forget. If he gets a couple of try assists a game, wow, that's a big plus. But if he's only getting 40, 50 points, like it's the same as playing another center wing.
Yeah.
Yep. I think there's only 3 potential options you can take at 7 this year, and that's paying up for a Cleary, JC, Hines, or going a Moses, or going the double cheapie. So I think there's only 2 viable options there in the double cheapie, and then paying up for someone. I don't think Moses is a good option, but I can't knock it, to be honest, mate. Double cheapie looks good.
Yeah, it feels okay at the moment. I've also toyed with having double cheapie and then like Cleary to flex.
Yeah.
I've looked at that because, I mean, Cleary is still just so good. And if you hold him for a year, it doesn't really matter if he loses cash. But I've opted against. What we've done at 5'8", we've gone Jackson Purdue, as we talked about in our CTW analysis. If he holds on to that left centre spot, I think he looks in for a pretty good year. If he is moved back to 5'8", he will be shot out of this team ridiculously quickly. But for now, I'm pretty happy with him in there. I'll be honest, I still don't love it. I don't think he is going to be like some massive star. I think he'll be a good player who'll probably hit his value, which honestly is enough for me at 5'8", because there is basically nobody else who I am happy to start with.
Yeah. No, I'm on the Purdue train as well. I think you can get as many center wings into, well, specifically centers into your team as possible, and you're going to be set. I think as well, if Purdue does drop down a bit in what he's doing, if there's a 5'8" particularly that explodes, like let's say Luai has a breakout year, gets up towards that, then he's an easy side grade. Same with Dylan Brown. We'll probably get dual because it'll probably be Sandon Smith and Dylan Brown. You can always side grade to Dylan Brown or go down to a Walker. I think there's great options if you start high and sell down, rather than starting low with a Cody Walker and having to fork out for a Purdue.
Yeah, solid point there. I've obviously been toying with Purdue a little bit on my side. Not hugely, but I've been looking at him. It does seem pretty appealing with him being at centre. I think he is a relative gun. Obviously not a world beater, but definitely quite a good player in an absolute wasteland of a position. I'll probably be going Cody Walker, though. Yeah, not too much more to say there. I just think hopefully I can upgrade a couple other positions with that little bit of cash saved. But yeah.
Yeah, fair. And then Pezzett at second 5'8", that requires literally zero discussion. Now, this is where it gets exciting because we've talked about a lot of centre wings on this episode, and my solution to not deciding who to go for is to pick all of them. So we've gone with Herbie, Val, Eero, Latrell, Critter, and Toya. So instead of deciding between any of the names, I've decided I'm just going to go for them all. As we've talked about ad nauseum, I think centers are the big dogs this year. I think they're really going to explode and make the most cash. I think a lot of these guys, I'm just going to hold on my team for the entire season and be happy to hold them. So, yeah, what do you guys think?
I do love it. I love the aggressiveness of it. I love just spending the cash where we know the value is, and then obviously where the points are just going to flow from in the centres. Love the Herbie at flex, and then also love a little potty sort of Toya on the bench there. So, yeah, can't knock it at all, mate.
I do have something similar. However, I am going to use, I think, my extra money from Catchman down to potentially get Drinkwater instead of probably Val Holmes with the injury like cloud around him. Especially hamstring injuries are one of those things that do come back from time to time, and he's getting up there in age. I'm tossing up between him and Ero, but I think centre wing for me looks exactly the same. I've sort of finally steered away from Taylor May. I'm happy to wait on him and see if he gets extra ball this year compared to last year. But yeah, it'll probably be Drinkwater at the flex instead of Herbie. And then toss up that play between Drinkwater and Walsh round 3.
Sure. And I'm still not married to Val and Toya because of their injury issues. I'll happily downgrade or side grade one of them or both of them if need be. But I just want to imagine that they both fit, and this is what I want to go for in that case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
Cool. Can you talk us through the cheapy options you've gone for as well?
Oh, nothing extraordinary. Just Fine Marty and Setu too.
Yeah.
Just keeping it nice and simple. I don't think Macassini's the one to start the season, so we'll just wait and see on that one. Lovely. And then I'm going to move on to my fullbacks, in which case I've got nothing special here either. Keanu Kinney and Tom Chester.
Yep.
So
pretty stock standard, really. I guess just quickly, while we've got a second, talk us through maybe your VC and captain targets for round 1. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so probably thinking for round...
on the spot there.
No, it's okay. I basically know what I'm going to do anyway. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go for a VC on Val Holmes. A VC on Val Holmes or no, it'll probably be Val for the round 1, and then the captain's just going to stay on Payne Haas and probably never move.
Yeah.
Are you worried about a VC on Val and maybe a Vegas Doggies game at all?
Yeah, I am, but I mean, I want Payne Haas to be my captain, and I don't love the options in the games beforehand.
Yeah.
Like the Sharks don't play before, the Dolphins don't play before,
Yeah,
the
good
Souths
points.
don't play before,
Yeah.
the Broncos. So I am pretty limited in my VC options there. There could be a wild card that props up late. Like maybe I even do something rogue, like go Harry Grant and see how he goes on a Thursday night against Parramatta. But we'll see. At the moment, I'm thinking Val probably has the most upside.
I guess my one rebuttal for that as well is, let's say Val gets 100. You then have to bring in a Tigers player or enough that you don't currently have for the VC loop. That's
Yeah,
the beauty of
also fair.
having Taylor May, I guess, is that round 1 you can explode with that VC loop. Or Macassini is the other one. So for me, I think I'll be looking at maybe getting Macassini if I'll probably end up reserving Drinkwater, depending. I'll obviously share my team list in a future potty. If Drinkwater gets 120, which he very well may, then I'll probably have to look at Macassini as my cheapie just so I can get an extra VC loop round 1.
Yeah, but that's an unlikely scenario either way. Like Val would have to get 100, 110, 120 for me to want to do that. Otherwise, it'll just be a Haas captain.
Easy.
Cool. Does that wrap us up for today?
I think that's us.
I think
That's
that's
us?
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Head over to our Instagram. Obviously, this will be up on YouTube. We'll have a couple clips up from Dan's team, and just ask us any questions, queries, any thoughts, anything you love. Yeah.
Obviously, as well, drop any sort of changes you'd make to any of the teams that we're going to post. Obviously, we posted one before, which was Elliot's team reveal, and mine's coming. Please put any comments that you have on our teams or any questions in the caption of the Instagram, or any form of YouTube comment. We will try and answer them all. And particularly, obviously, it's quite hard to go along and focus and remember the team as we're speaking. So the full team reveals will be up on our Insta as well. So head over there.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.